Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Misfits Racing League broadcast. Of course, we are here finally to witness the Tier 2 racing action that should have happened yesterday here around Zandvoort. My name is Strifium. Joining me today in the commentary booth once again is Unicorn. How you doing, Unicorn?
Well, we've just had one exciting race around Zandvoort. I can't imagine this one's going to be any different here.
Okay, now just full disclosure, whatever you did to your microphone last time around, undo it because we are back to normal audio for the time being. You may need to do it once again, but we'll get there when we get there. But of course, to everyone tuning in, we appreciate you hanging out with us today, as it's been a very eventful day between bugs, racing action, qualifying issues, and of course audio bugs. But we are here, and we are here to bring you Tier 2 racing action nonetheless. So of course, let's take a look at the calendar for these drivers moving through this season. It is going to be the MRL calendar. Of course, we're in round 5 as I just get my graphics all sorted out. Things have been quite hectic today as usual. We will make sure these things do not happen again. Spain, round 6 next week. Of course, Monaco for round 7. Azerbaijan for round 8. Canada for round 9. And it's France. Then to Austria for the first half of this season. And then after that, we bring things into, of course, Britain, then to the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Russia, Japan, the US, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. Take a look at who's going to be driving in Tier 2 today as well. Of course, we're going to have some reserves considering things have had to be rescheduled. A couple drivers filling in for people who could not make it. Kai Bacchini and the Funky JJ for Mercedes today. A2K and Yasko for Ferrari, with Gadwin and Liam over at Red Bull. Skybits and Little Bear for McLaren. It's Jackass and Undertaker for Renault usually, with Juicebox and Wisp for AlphaTauri. Robbo and Itzamax with Racing Point. And I apologize as I try to flow through this as quickly as I can, because we want to get this started when we wanted to start it, which is basically now. Maxim B, C-Joss for Alfa Romeo, Crampy Max Inkster for Haas, the dynamic duo, of course, and it's Domi and Squid for the Williams team. So that's going to round out, of course, the teams. Let's take a look at the standings here for Tier 2 heading into this race. As it stands right now, Mercedes leading the Constructors' Championship, very similar to the grid you saw race previously in the club division. Of course, Jay right now, 58 points. Skybits there in second, and his teammate Kai Bacchini there in third. And it is Alfa Romeo and McLaren, the two runners-up in this fight right now for that the Constructors' title. But with all of that being said, we are now ready to go racing here in Zandvoort as soon as all of these drivers are ready to go. And I'm super excited about it as, well, I think we may have perhaps a lobby without as many bugs today.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That's what you always hope for in this kind of scenario. Obviously, we just come off the back of a dynamic weather race here. Whether we'll see a similar weather forecast for this one, obviously yet to be seen. But that provided some interesting tyre strategies, to say the least, with the mediums seeming like they hold their pace rather well. The softs being, as always, very quick around here.
Yes, very quick for sure. We saw a lot of pace coming out of those soft compound tires near the end of that race in the club division, of course. We are here for an 18-minute qualifying session ahead of a 50% distance race. We have 16 drivers on the grid here for this rescheduled race. It's going to be Jack S, A2K, Kai Bacchini, Robbo, Extreme in a reserve role with C-Joss, Adrian, Skybits, Moen, Liam, Wisp, Gadwin. We have Seb the Champ over at Ferrari for, I believe, Yasko, if I'm not mistaken, unless I'm completely off for tier for that.
Nope.
No, I'm good? Okay, great. And then we have Crampy over at Haas as well. Squid in the Williams and Little Bear in the other McLaren. And I do believe we're missing Max Inkster this evening as a result of getting his connection issues sorted. I think we didn't want to take any chances. Of course, we'll figure that stuff out after this race. But we are going to get a weather report momentarily. And once we do, we will let you know what's going on. Of course, it's usually a driver to jump into the chat and let everyone know what's going on. So we'll see if we get any of that. But it's going to be drivers now firing up their engines. And I think the first racer to come out of this pit lane is going to be the Williams of Squid.
car firing out of the pit lane. Everyone at the moment opting for the soft common tyre. We didn't see anyone in the club division qualify on mediums in the end. Obviously everyone started on inters anyway, but here currently it looks clear in qualifying at least. And everyone who's coming out so far is doing so on that Redwood soft compound tyre.
Now, I do believe we've had some word. Shama in the chat is saying rain in all exclamation marks, and I think that she has an inside track on info for that because Gadwin in the Red Bull is currently out. So we're being told by Freeware now it is actually the same weather as yesterday and in Club Division. So we are going to have more wet racing here in Zandvoort. Tell your friends, tell your family, get everybody in here because things are going to be hectic once again, except this time around, it's going to be Tier 2 racers. And although it is 16 of them, we're going to see a good chunk of different drivers on the grid today. Quite a few fast boys around here that could put up some time similar to that of that we saw from, of course, Alex Bitto, Nigel, and Remco with Fraser in the mix as well. So there's quite a few quick boys around here. Kai Bacchini is one of them, but Squid is the first driver here that's going to be beginning a flying lap around Zandvoort.
Yeah, and again, we are missing the current championship leader here in this race, which would be Jay in Mercedes. Skywitz in the McLaren. He is here. He's 20 points behind though, so he would need a win to take that top spot from Jay. But it is Squid on the DRS straight right now, down into the final sector around the long left-hander towards the penultimate corner, which is obviously followed by this huge banked turn, as he will be the first person to set a flying lap time. We're seeing 109s at the front of the last grid. It's a 110.1 for Squid to open up the grid for this evening. Then it's C. Joss, I do believe. He's just coming around the final corner. DRS enabled down the start finish straight. He's going to set a 109.5, a very, very quick time from the Alfa Romeo driver there. Meanwhile, Kai Bacchini's invalidated his lap time, so he's going to be diving back into the pits. A2K in the Ferrari though, he is going to set his first lap, and it's going to be a 109.7. That puts him second at the moment. Jack S. Another 109.5, this time from Jack S in the Renault. As Seb the Champ goes fourth, just behind his teammate, a 110 flat. Campy with a 110.1. 3/100th of a second ahead of Squid there in the Williams. given that he took all that exit curbing, and like you said, you know, having to avoid getting invalidated there, which I'm a little surprised that he didn't get the invalidation. A 109.7 is a very, very impressive time from the Red Bull driver there.
Well, it appears my microphone was having an issue there for the stream. Now I'm back in live here. So yes, of course, Liam gumming up that last curbing there, as I was saying. I am not going to have that audio issue ever again now. I've just handled that for good.
Cavaccini invalidated his first attempt. He's back out on a flying lap in the Mercedes. We've seen him being very, very successful in qualifying so far this season. As the race is not quite so much, but he is sitting third in the standings right now. And of course the Mercedes currently first in the constructors as well.
Yes, as I'm just addressing something on my end here, so feel free to carry on with what you're saying.
Into the Tyrrell, another lockup from the Mercedes, but it looks like he's carrying as much speed as he can. The lap is still valid for the time being. Into the penultimate corner, onto that exit curbing, not using nearly as much as we just saw Liam do in the Red Bull. This time, Cavaccini is going to set a valid lap time, and it's going to be a 109.1 from him. That is absolutely insane from the Mercedes driver, almost clawing his way into the 108. He's 4/10 quicker than anyone else out on track right now. Sijos in the Alfa Romeo, he is back out on a flyer as well. He was in first before Cavaccini put in that absolutely astonishing lap time. He is going a little bit faster than he was previously, but not as fast as Cavaccini at the moment, as he rounds the final corner using a little bit more of that exit curve than Kai. Not invalidating though, it's a very fine line, but it looks like he is going to pull into the pit lane. He's going to abort that lap there. A2K, he's on a flyer as well in the Ferrari, currently sitting in 6th place, a 109.7 for him. That's on par with Liam's time, which we saw him set. Squid's in 4th still, with Jack S currently sitting in 3rd. But it is the Ferrari. A2K now coming into the final sector. 2 corners to go for the Ferrari. And a little bit wobbly on exit of the penultimate corner there. He was going to go and use the curving, but it looked like he got a little bit sideways on exit, and that's going to be an improvement for him now. 109.1. If he hadn't have had that mistake, he might have got into the 108s there. But a very, very impressive time from him. He's just missed out on provisional pole by 8/1000ths of a second. And that's Jack S. He's had an off out or towards 10.8. He's missing an end plate, so he's going to have to come back to the pit lane. He's carrying a lot of brake marker on him as well. Meanwhile, out on a fly, Seb the champ in the Ferrari. He's coming back into the pits. He's aborting. Robbo then in the racing point. He's got front wing damage. He's gone wide as well, so he's going to be aborting this lap. Is there anyone out on a fly right now that would still be posting a competitive time? Liam rounding the final corner to start his next attempt. You saw him have a little bit of an issue during the final corner, and he's still set at 109.7, so definitely room for improvement from 7th place. As there's an Alfa Romeo letting him pass on the exit of turn 3 there. No holding him up there, which is what we like to see. And everyone being respectful to those qualifying on flying laps. As I do believe Liam is the only one, as Moen starts a flying lap in the Renault, the only person yet to set a time here in the session. As Liam has a big off, and he's lost an end plate there, so he is definitely not going to be improving this lap time round, and he's probably only got time for one more good lap here with 6.5 minutes, maybe 2 if the drivers do get the additional time that they sometimes get at the end of qualifying sessions. But it's Moen then on a flying lap in the Renault. Let's set a lap time. he is reserving for Undertaker, I do believe, in that Renault. Number 29 car there. Coming onto the DRS straight down towards the tight right-hander that opens Sector 3.
Okay, I believe we have things sorted out now. As I am back on my end.
Brilliant. As Moen rounds the final corner, enabling DRS, and his first lap time is going to be a 1:11.2. So his first driver out on track right now. But it is Kai Bacchini who's at the top of the timing tower right now. Just slithers ahead of A2K's out on an outlap. See just as well. He's in third right now on a flyer.
See Joss on a flyer, about to finish a flyer in this Alfa Romeo. He's coming down through this final right-hander into that long banking section that Zandvoort's known for. What's the time going to be? DRS now. He's running out of battery deployment, but what's it going to be regardless? He improves by almost a tenth. It's not going to be enough to set himself ahead of that Ferrari of A2K, though, and A2K is heading out for another lap.
Yeah, A2K, he's literally milliseconds behind Kai Bacchini right now. And Kai Bacchini, he's not headed back out onto the track yet for another shot. He's already had 2 attempts at a time here. But A2K trying to put that Mercedes under threat for first position in qualifying here.
Looking good in that Scarlet Red Ferrari coming through Sector 2 right now. He's got a very small margin to make up at the moment, well, which can be the most difficult task for these drivers in qualifying.
It does look like he's struggling a little bit. He's just a little bit slower than he's been previously. Less than a tenth though, so if he lost the time in the final sector, which I do believe he did, he might be able to regain that time and a little bit more to put himself onto provisional pole. It's across the line, a 109.2, so 1.5 tenths of his previous best, so no pole position for him at the moment.
Robbo now in the racing point looking to finish out a flyer, coming through that final turn, and he's invalidated on that exit curb, and that seems to be the hot spot for a lot of invalidations here around Zandvoort, and you can see he is dove into the pit lane now.
And I think that if we are going to see rain in the race, I think if that curb gets a little bit slippery, we could see quite a few spins if people aren't careful and respecting that curb. As we see Wisp has started a flying lap in the AlphaTauri. So if we are starting this rain in the wets, if it does dry out again, do you think we're going to see those drivers copy what Alex Bitter used to win and go for the softs first and then the mediums, or what do you think we're going to see in terms of these guys learning from what we just saw in the Clubman race?
I think we're going to see something entirely different. That's what I think. I think that people are going to watch that last race. They're going to see the drivers going onto those softs. I think that maybe we're going to see a lot of drivers jump onto these hard compound tires depending on when the rain subsides. Of course, I don't know if we're going to have the exact same kind of weather we did last race, and that's the unpredictable factor here. They know the rain's coming. They just don't know when it's going to be going away and when it's going to be time to get off of those dry compound tires, and that could throw a wrench in the entire thing.
We could have just wet race throughout, as Wisp sets an almost identical time to what he did previously. So whilst he does improve, he doesn't change his position, as we are coming into the closing stages of qualifying now. Gadwin, he's on a flyer in the Red Bull, as well as Adrian and Extreme. Cavaccini as well, currently provisional pole in the Mercedes. We've already said it. He's very, very narrowly ahead of A2K. So can he improve? Can he get himself below a 109? As he comes off, there's a racing point. It's extreme. It looks like he was trying to get out of the way. And there's also a Red Bull. That's Gadwin, who's retired. In the middle of the track there. Carnage in Sector 2 as Liam goes off into the gravel.
Wisp now finishing a flyer on board with him. What's it going to be? It's not an improvement. So he hasn't been able to improve after 2 laps on those softs. That's most certainly going to be it for him. Meanwhile, a massive amount of drivers on laps right now. Kai Bacchini has had an issue, it would seem, as he's slowing that car right down. Could be preparing for his lap now. Getting those tires hot. Who's he letting by? He's not letting anyone by. He's just slowing things down, and he is now set to go, coming through that final turn, leading into this last flyer lap for the Mercedes, and he's going to be looking to improve on that 109.1.
Yeah, that second sector shenanigans that is just going on might cost a few drivers here in the late stages of qualifying. Not only could it annoy them, affect their mentality coming in, as Kai Bacchini with a rather large lockup on the front left there coming into turn 3. But obviously it puts an extra lap on your tyres, which you don't want, especially if you start the race on these softs. And that causes problems for you there. But Kai Bacchini still going strong, and he is faster than his previous time in Sector 1. Can he continue that run of pace through the second and third sectors though?
Going to be very difficult for him to beat that 109.1 right now, or maybe not, as he's up a 10th through Sector 2, but it's going to be even more difficult for A2K to improve on the 109.1 if Kai improves, because of course both of these drivers flying for pole right now, and there goes Kai out of the last turn. He's had a big spin off, and that's going to cost him. We'll see what the time's going to be across the line, or if he even bothers, and he doesn't. So it's A2K with a possibility to get pole here in the Ferrari. He has some traffic though pulled off to the side. I hope it doesn't impede him.
Out of Sector 2, A2K was 0.024, which would be enough to put him ahead of Kai Bacchini if he can carry it through the second sector. He's not though. He's lost all the time through the third sector. Well, that was traffic. Liam with a 109 flat in the Red Bull.
Very quick from him. Of course, Liam, the reigning Tier 2 champion. And he has had a very shaky season so far, so I'm sure we'll see him out in full force today.
It does look like he will be the pole sitter for the evening, and I believe we're just waiting for drivers to make their way back to the pit stops, or the pit lane. I think we are just waiting for these cars to get back to the pit lane. There's no other explanation as to why we're still waiting here in the qualifying stage of the lobby as the Renault runs into the back of the Red Bull there.
Well, it looks like that is going to be your grid, though. Liam on pole position. Kai Bacchini lining up next to him on that front row, with A2K rounding out your top 3. And we'll go through the grid in just a few moments when qualifying comes to a final finish. But of course, pretty well all of these racers getting their final times. And we'll take a look at the gap to leader right now. The gap to leader is 1.6 from 16th position all the way down through to first. But of course, the gap between first down into 5th is something to talk about. 0.2 is the gap there. And of course, less than a second all the way down through to 13th. So this grid looking quite competitive on these softs, and we'll have to see how the drivers do with that wet weather coming through in just a few moments' time.
Yeah, certainly going to throw a spanner into the works as well if we're going to see those curbs get a little bit slippery under the wet conditions. We've already seen a few of these guys having a bit of an issue on the entrance curb to the final corner, and if that gets wet and they're already losing traction through there on the soft tyres, goodness knows what's going to happen when we switch it up and presumably go on intermediates, if not full wets, depending on how heavy that rain is.
Yeah, it appears extreme currently in the pit lane. Something going on there is desynced, and now he has finally come through. But it is going to be Liam on pole position. Kai Bacchini lining up next to him on the front row. A2K rounding off your top three with Jack S in the Renault taking up fourth here after qualifying. Crampy in fifth. Joss in sixth. Squid in seventh. Of course, he is suffering through some Wi-Fi issues. I don't believe we're going to see him take to the cockpit in that car. Of course, Seb in eighth. Skybits in ninth. Little Bear in 10th, rounding off the top 10 drivers here. It's the McLaren 910 for the moment. AlphaTauri Wisp in the AlphaTauri in 11th position. Robbo in 12th. Gadwin in 13th. Adrian in 14th with Extreme in 15th. And Moen bringing up the rear of this grid in the other Renault.
Yeah, Moen down there. He did improve his time. So he's caught onto the back of the grid. He's back down into the 110s. 110.7. So he is reserving, obviously. But as for the rest of the grid, the front runners, those are some astonishing times. Almost breaking in to the 108s. But there is the rain. It looks just about as heavy as we saw previously. So I imagine it will be intermediates at the start here, as we just wait for everyone to load in. The session's got 20 seconds until we get underway again here at Zandvoort for Tier 2.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been tuning in for the better part of 3 hours now. We're almost 3 hours into this stream as we started things off with Club Division with some difficulties, but thank you so much to everybody who's been hanging with us today, enjoying some racing action. Of course, my name's Strifium. Joining me today has been Unicorn. We greatly appreciate all of you guys in the chat, and we hope that we have another cracking race here in Zandvoort for you as we get underway on our formation lap. You can see there the predicted pit stop strategies suggesting inters to inters. However, I do believe we have it on good information that we are going to be seeing that dry weather. So we saw that strategy come up through at the beginning of the race previously, and that got tossed out the window quite rapidly. Now there's a couple drivers coming together on the grid. That's Seb and Skybits in 8 and 9 there coming together on this formation lap, and they're going to get reset to the grid. They're going to have to deal with some unfortunate, cold tires, and that's going to be even worse off for them considering the wet conditions we're seeing these drivers plow through on the inters.
Yeah, you don't want to start this race on cold tires, especially with that run down to turn one. That tight right-hander in the wet is difficult enough already once you've had a formation lap to warm your tires up. Without that benefit for 7 Skybits there, they're going to struggle. They're in the middle of the grid as well, so let's hope that they don't cause any problems, but they're going to struggle in the run down to turn one and the first sector at least on those cold tires, I would imagine.
Oh, I'm very eager to see how this race start goes. Of course, the last race start caused us a safety car on the opening lap. Of course, we'd like to go a few laps before seeing that. I'm sure the drivers would. We see a little bit of light there. I don't know if we're going to have rain till the end. I saw Freeware suggested in the chat. Of course, if you guys think, if you have a driver you're watching, let us know who you got for the race win here in this one. Let us know what you think is going to happen with the weather, and we'd love to see your predictions in the chat for this race. As all of these drivers now approach the grid, it's A2K in the Ferrari starting here in 3rd position. That last driver of Moen now in the Renault approaching this grid. It's going to be 36 laps around here in the Netherlands. It is Zandvoort, and it is round 5 of the Misfits Racing League Tier 2 action on a Friday. We hope you enjoy the race. 3, 4, 5 red lights on here now once again in Zandvoort, and take us away, Unicorn, when these drivers take off.
And it's a little bit of a delayed start, and that's on Williams with Squid. It appears he did not get the delayed start, and he's lost an end plate, which is a bit confusing. Up at the front, though, Kai Bacchini, he's had an excellent start. He's up into 1st position, and that's Jack S up the inside of the Ferrari A2K through this tight right-hander. At the back, you've got the 2 McLarens. They're going side by side on exit. Little Bear, he's already up 3 places. Gadwin, he's gained 4 as well. Looking a little bit wide though towards turn 3, trying to go around the outside of Skybits, but he's really messed up the exit, but it's Kai Bacchini who leads. Liam, he's lost the position. He's down to second. Jack up the inside of A2K into turn 1. He puts himself into P3. A2K, he loses out. He's down to 4th. Crampy holds on to 5th. Cjos holds 6th. As Seb now, he's making a position back. He's past Gadwin, but he is 1 place down, sorry, from where he started. Gadwin, though, looking to go back around the outside onto the DRS straight. Obviously, DRS will not be enabled, obviously because of the first lap, but also because of this wet weather conditions. But he's looking at the inside of the tight right-hander at the end of this straight. Can he get past? There's not a lot of space, a little bit of contact. No spin from Gadwin. He's managed to save it, but now he's under pressure from Wisp. And then now for Tauri, who gets a little bit sideways. His teammate Adrian now coming past.
Gadwin missing a front left end plate there. Not sure if he took that in the collision or that slight contact. It's Jack S coming out of the banking, a little slippery there, and you see the McLaren swerving, and he is off, backing out into the pit lane now, and that is the Ferrari moving by him, and it looks like Jack S now reversing, trying to get things turned around, get himself out of the way.
Gadwin's coming into
Oh, he is so lucky that he didn't get disqualified here.
But no safety car of the start of the race, and Kai Bacchini and Liam absolutely tearing away from the rest of the pack. Meanwhile, the rest of the grid mostly forming into shape here. And the cold tyres for Skybits haven't really affected him too much. He's up 2 places off the start. And most people gained a place now after Gadwin's incident.
Well, not only Gadwin, yeah, I was going to say it's Jack S there. The Gadwin comes in on that fresh set of enters with a wing change, and now it's Kai Bacchini still leading this race ahead of the Canadian Liam, and it's A2K in 3rd in that Ferrari. And of course the gaps on screen right now aren't completely up to date. We'll hope to see them update as these drivers cross into lap 3 now.
And that's the Haas. That's Crampy. He's had a big off out of the turn. He's spinning. He's been hit by someone else. And that's a huge crash. That's an Alpha Tauri of Adrian into him. That's 2 DNFs at the start. There's only a VSC. That's the racing point of Robbo into the the retired Adrian. He's going to suffer some pretty heavy damage from that. And he's going to have to go the whole lap without it. It's only a VSC at the moment. But there's 2 cars stuck, stranded out of the final corner. You can see him as Gadwin comes past it. Well, only the Alpha Tauri remains. It's a huge incident.
Yeah, we saw one driver collect the Haas. I think it was Adrian there, full throttle coming out of that banking on the straight, and that has now sparked this VSC. And as you said, shocking not to see that full safety car deployed.
But even without the full safety car, this VSC has allowed Liam to catch back up a little bit. There's the end of the VSC, but Mila Hands picked up a drive-through penalty for speeding. Liam now within a second of Kai Bacchini, despite it being lap 3 though, the weather disabling DRS for the time being. And that's Gadwin out of this race as well now. He's had an issue out of turn 6.
Oh
His
no.
front right is missing.
And you hate to see it as Gadwin now out of this race in that Red Bull. Jackass passes him by in the Renault, and he's had an unfortunate spin in this race as well. And it just seems like this wet weather is catching a lot of these Tier 2 drivers unexpected.
Wisp sliding again, similar to Crampy. He's managed to hold it though. He's missed an end plate. He does into the pit. Sorry for the interruption there.
No worries, as him and Seb have both taken 5-second penalties heading into the pit lane. They're not getting things slowed down nearly enough in this wet weather ahead of that pit entry, and now they're both taking 5-second penalties as a result. And it looks like Seb and I believe Wisp not serving those yet. So when they come in next, they're going to have to serve those penalties. And I'm not sure if Robbo took one, but he's into the pit lane now as well. So this race has been absolutely shaken up by this weather. The pace that we saw and those tight intervals that we saw through that qualifying session have been completely turned upside down in this wet weather.
Those pit stops have worked in Little Bear's favour. He served that drive-through penalty that he got under VSC, and he's still in 8th place in the McLaren. So not too much of an impact on his race. But like I said, most of the gaps here have completely evaporated. That's Jackass. He's spun again. This time it's out of turn 5. There's no one around him. He's going very slow rejoining the track now. I think his tyres might be rather overheated or something. He's missing an end plate as well. Not a good start to the race for him. Robbo and Squid, though, they're very tight for 11th place. The Racing Point all over the back of the Williams. A little bit of contact.
Yeah, Squid no longer in control of that car right now, and it appears that may have resulted in an issue for Jack S in the Renault. Not entirely sure, but right now Little Bear in 8th position has closed the gap to Moen in the Renault, and this is now the closest player versus player battle we're seeing between these two drivers. 7 and 8 right now. It's the Renault losing time to the McLaren.
Well, we saw Moen. He did start this at the back of the grid, so he's taken full advantage of the chaos that has ensued here. He's avoided the incident. He's kept himself clean, and he's managed to get himself all the way up to 7th place. So a rather impressive start to the race for him. As Cabicini sits at 120.8, the fastest lap of the race, so that gives you an idea as to how much pace the rain is causing everyone here.
Things have now spaced themselves out into a gap for Skybits and Seajoss in this battle for 4th position now, as the McLaren of Little Bear and Skybits, both drivers in these tight little battles, looking for as much position as they can get, and I think Moen might be the quicker driver to dispatch for the McLaren team right now, so we'll ride along with Little Bear until Skybits is able to make a little bit more headway. A couple things to note: Cabicini currently 1.5 seconds ahead of Liam, and Liam 4 seconds ahead of the Ferrari of A2K in 3rd position. Things have spaced themselves out quite a bit at the front of this grid. Of course, the safety car can put all of that to a change. We're very early on in this race, only 6 laps currently out of the 36 these drivers are going to be going on until the end. Of course, the intermediate compound tires, we are not sure if those are going to be the tires these racers are on until the end. And if you're just tuning in, this is, of course, Tier 2, Round 5 MRL action. My name's Strifium. Unicorn, talk us through some of what's going on here.
Yeah, obviously, like you said, we don't know how long these guys are going to be on the intermediate tires, and you can choose to, if there is rain throughout the entire race, you can choose to just one stop. Obviously, for some people, they've already had a stop, so they will be forced to 2-stop if the rain persists, whereas the guys ahead of them have a little bit more freedom as to whether they can still go for the 1 or the 2-stop. If the rain does clear, though, we saw it last race, it's going to cause a little bit of confusion if these drivers aren't quite sure how long they can individually get different sets of dry compound tires to last, because obviously each driver, tire management skills vary, how long you can get those tires around this track. We did see the hard compound tire take 30 laps in the last race, so if it was to dry up now, you could foresee some people trying to go to the end on hard tires. But right now, it's still Little Bear trying to get past the Renault of Moen. He's still a little bit far back from the Renault.
Rain, that great equalizer here in this race, as it's showing who clearly has pace in the wet, and of course the circuit itself is playing a role in this race, overtaking wise. It's not the easiest circuit to overtake in, especially in these wet conditions.
Yeah, and coming off the back of 2 tracks with very long straights where, you know, if you've got the DRS and ERS, you know, much easier to overtake in that kind of scenario as well. And that sort of poses a completely different ERS use case, whereas these guys, they aren't going to be trying to preserve it as much for the straights here, because the straights are obviously so much shorter than they are in China and Vietnam. As it looks like Minaben might finally try and get Moen. He's getting closer in that McLaren. You can see him He's got pace, but Moen and the Renault still clinging on to 7th place for the time being.
Just see the water pouring down on these guys, and it's more so for Little Bear in the rear of that Renault than it is for Moen. But a good question is, when is this rain going to stop? Because we've seen this rain come in now. If the club division had a much quicker rainfall than this one's just been constant and consistent. And I don't know if we're going to see these drivers come in nearly as early as we did see for club division off these wet tires.
Yeah, I do believe the rain had already subsided at this point in the club division, whereas these races, they're going to have to plow through it for a little while longer. Now, if you haven't pitted, if the one stop inter to inter is what you're aiming for, then obviously halfway through this race would be about lap 18. So they've still got about 10 laps or so on these tyres with some regard of pace. But obviously if the rain sort of starts to ease off before then it's a little bit more difficult with when it's coming off. And also if the rain continues for a little bit longer, if let's say the rain ends 22 laps into this race, then you can't really take a set of intermediate tyres that length, but you could try and risk it and go for a one stop or a two stop if you already stopped at this stage of the race.
Yeah, for sure. And as things have kind of slowed down right now, I'm going to take everyone through this grid. Of course, Kai Bacchini and Liam starting on that front row. They have flipped positions. It was Liam who started this race on pole. Kai Bacchini now leads ahead, 2.7 seconds, and growing is the gap. A2K there in third is where he started this race. Of course, Sejoss is up 2 places. Skybit's up 4 places. Now it's Extreme and Moen who have been the winners here, as they have both made up 9 positions each. And now it's Little Bear up 2 slots from where he began in 10th, and he's hunting down Moen right now, looking to maybe cut that, gap from where he began down to 8 positions instead of 9 currently. But Seb the Champ down a place. He started in 8th, and it's Wisp up a place from 11th. This is Robbo in 11th position, and we see Squid, the currently AI-controlled car of the Williams, in 12th, down 5 positions, with Jack S down 9 after a very weird, pair of spins coming out of that final banking, it would seem. Having trouble with his overtake maybe on the exit. Not entirely sure what happened there. Of course, the wet conditions making things a little bit crazier on these drivers coming out of some of those faster turns.
Yeah, but like you said, it has sort of fizzled out in terms of on-track action right now. The rain is still coming down, so we are gonna, it would look like, close in on where these drivers have to get off of these intermediate tyres for another set of inters. Whether you want to do that now, if you're a driver on track, and try and get a little bit more pace over your rivals, or stay out, try and avoid taking the extra pit stop, which right now would be a little bit unnecessary, but it depends how long. I'm sure many of them are constantly asking their race engineers how long this rain is going to last.
Well, that's exactly what they have to do, and that's really their only option to find out what's happening with this rain, is to talk to the engineer, and that's Jeff, of course, and wait for Jeff to tell them, when, this is the time to pit. And I'm sure we all know Jeff can be very, very indecisive in what he tells these drivers. You'll have 6 guys get 6 different stories from Jeff if they all press the MFD at the same time, so it really is up in the air. Of course, one good indicator is when that DRS gets enabled, which I think was the indicator last race around when we saw Fraser in for that early pit stop onto the hard compound.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether Fraser actually was able to take advantage of that, or whether he did just dive in really early to the pit stop and DRS was enabled just after he pulled in. But I think, as far as I'm aware, the weather, in terms of at least the weather reports that Jeff provides, are done sector by sector, so depending on where you are on the track, it could vary as to the response you get. But I would imagine it would be done off of the leader, so Kai Bacchini is still in that first position. He's 3.7 seconds up the road from Liam. His wet weather pace seems to be very strong here at Zandvoort in the Netherlands.
Well, not a lot going on circuit right now. Little Bear, the only gap, sub 1 second to Moen, and that battle isn't really happening, if you will, as there's no DRS, there's no overtake really being utilized that much by these races right now. Things have been spaced out to a point where I think everybody now is comfortable. I think everyone's just waiting to see what happens with this wet weather, as nobody's really gaining or losing time right now, except for maybe Skybits gaining some time on Seajoss there, but he's been in that 1 second in and out range, so we'll see how things develop. It's now Little Bear who's still dipping in and out of that 1 second range as well. And I have to say, I don't think that this was very much expected for the Tier 2 racers. Usually things are a lot tighter in this grid, but this is the first major rain we've seen in Tier 2 as well throughout a race, as it seems to be trending this week for Zandvoort, the rain, at least for Club Division and these Tier 2 racers now. Tier 1 had it easy without the rain.
Yeah, maybe everyone's just, taking a little bit of breathing space after that very chaotic start. Some of them very narrowly missing out on that huge crash out of the banked final turn, and after these pit stop windows, obviously the likes of Seb and below, most of them have already stopped, so once the driver's up at the front, considering that this rain is still coming down, they're likely going to have to pit for a fresh set of intermediates, so that might reignite some battles in the race. So right now the driver's probably just taking a moment, because they know as soon as pit stops and strategies start coming into play, especially if this rain subsides, it's all going to heat straight back up again, and everyone's going to be fighting for position once again.
Somebody who's carefully making up some time here, it's Wisp in this AlphaTauri. I think he wants to get up with Seb here, and I think that he's been hanging in this 2.5 second range and slowly chipping away at that gap. And we'll have to see how he fares here in this race. He's currently sitting in that final points position with Robbo, Jackass, and Squid there, 11th, 12th, and 13th respectively, that are going to be looking to try and get these points. Well, maybe not Squid, because he's not with us, unfortunately, due to some difficult connection problems over on his end. Of course, for those watching, this is Tier 2, Round 5 for the Misfits Racing League. We are a PC league, and normally you would see this race take place on a Thursday, but unfortunately yesterday we saw some lobby issues keep us from that. But we're here back with a quick rescheduling and racing action for you all today. And of course, we're going to have racing action every Friday, Tuesday. Well, we'll start with where the week begins, I suppose. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and when F1 races are happening on Saturdays is when you can find MRL racing action. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing, enjoying the commentary, enjoying hanging out in that chat, of course, park it here, hit that follow button, because we do it for the viewers. It is all for you that we do these races, and of course the drivers that look to improve. They love to watch these races back to see where they could have gone better, and it looks now as Moen and Little Bear, it's Jack S now who's been lapped, and he's out onto some dry compound tires right now in that Renault, and it is a very curious choice from him getting on these tires. We'll see how it goes for him. It could be a very, very good decision from him, but he's put himself a couple stops down now in this race. You can see 3 stops out of the Renault already here in this one. You see Seb, Wisp, Robbo, and Squid each with a stop apiece, and the drivers from 8th down into the lead of this race with Kai Bacchini have not come in for any kind of tire changes yet.
Jackass's decision to go onto the mediums has confused me a lot. He seems to be slipping and sliding, and I think it might have cost his teammate Moen some time to Mina there as well behind him, as when that other Renault came out of the pits, it sort of slowed down Moen, but we are seeing now Extreme fit a fresh pair of intermediates onto his racing point, and then you can see him coming out of the pit lane behind the McLaren and the Renault battling. He's clearing he's not going to clear the back marker of Squid in the Williams, obviously the AI controlled car there. I mean, on turn 3. So now Extreme on the fresh compound tyre. Let's see whether this is going to provide him the pace he needs, how quickly he can dispatch of the cars ahead of him. Clearly setting the fastest time of the race, sorry. Robbo, Extreme's teammate, he's also dived into the pits. He's gone for hards though, so completely different strategies for the two Racing Point drivers.
I'm going to jump on board with Kai Bacchini. It doesn't appear he has a major amount of rain falling coming right now. Of course, you can get a clear picture with the race leader because he has nobody to put spray in his face, as it were. And it doesn't seem like the rain is falling anymore here around Zandvoort. So it could be that this track's starting to dry up. Robbo onto those hards, Jack onto the mediums. Very bold strategy. And you can see Kai has just set a purple sector 1 here on these intermediates, which could be an additional indicator unless he's just pulling fantastic pace out of those intermediate compound tires right now. But it's still a battle. Little Bear is still on Moen, and as a result, Extreme has caught up on these fresh intermediate compound tires after pitting. We'll see what he's able to do with the much fresher rubber here in these wet conditions. You can still see the spray very much a reality and a factor here on this track. There's a lot of spray coming off that McLaren into the screen of the Racing Point. Of course, it's Moen who's in 6th, who hasn't had an opportunity to breathe after Little Bear has just been hunting him down. Kai Bacchini now setting a new fastest lap, a 1:20.582 here around Zandvoort.
Yeah, we are starting to see, like you said, the rain's slowing down, but it's not a dry track at all. You can still see spray coming off the cars as Extreme breaking a lot of boards at the side of the track. Keeps it straight though, and you can continue hunting down Little Bear ahead of him in that McLaren. But if I was in this race right now, I'd try and go another couple of laps, at least to try and make it so that pitting for mediums when the dry tyres are the fastest is probably the best strategy to go for, with about 20, or just under 20 laps to go now. We did see some people take soft about 16 laps in the previous race, so if we get to lap 20, we might see a few people go for a soft tyre gamble if we dry up. Anytime after lap 20, it's a bit of a toss-up as to whether you'd want the mediums or the softs. But right now, if the track dried up right now, I would say mediums is probably what we'd see most drivers opt for. Definitely too late in the race for hards though.
Yeah, and Little Bear's dropped off of Moen now. They were going neck and neck for some time. You see Little Bear dropping out of that second now to a 1.2 gap. It's very touch and go. He's been in and out of it through the race. We're halfway through now. Extreme in 8th position, less than half a second between him and the McLaren, and he's on this fresh set of intermediate compound tires, and he looks very, very carefully around the outside there. Maybe missed his braking a little bit as Little Bear hugging that inside. Of course, as things begin to dry up here, these tires, these intermediate tires, are going to gain or get a little hotter, gain some temperature, and that's going to cause some issues, some sliding. And you can see Kai Bacchini now, he's losing a lot of time on this lap. I'm not entirely sure if it's his best effort, but of course could be a result of what we were talking about with those temperatures.
Yeah, and I think Extreme now, he's not really making as much of an advantage as I think he'd like on these fresh intermediate tyres. I think we're about at the switching point for when the game would suggest, if we're going to continue with the rain, get off the intermediates now for another set. But everyone from 1st to 7th still on 17 lap old inters now. I think we're going to see them hold out until this track dries. But if we start seeing rain again, if it continues to rain, they're going to have to switch off, and that would leave Extreme in a very good position. But that's a very specific scenario that the Racing Point needs for this to work out for him. So it's still Extreme. But Meena Bear has also caught up to Moen. There's Robbo getting lapped by this trio, and there's a yellow flag out, but I don't know what that's for. I think maybe just a slow moving car of Robbo there. But these three still first, 6th, 7th and 8th, not 1st, 2nd or 3rd. Still in the same order we've seen it in the previous few laps, but now the gaps are much closer, particularly between Moen and Little Bear. Little Bear, he's gone into the pits. He's thinking, now's the time to get off of these tyres, but what's he going to put on? Is it a fresh set of inters, or is he going for mediums? It is inters. He's going to get a fresh set of inters on, and also a new wing for the McLaren.
So something to think about is Extreme now has caught up to Moen so quickly. He's within that half a second. And he's on these the fresher intermediates to the end here, it would seem, considering this circuit is not drying up. The water hasn't gone anywhere. But you have Wisp going onto those hard compound tires.
Yeah, it's risky switching at this stage, especially, obviously, Little Bear, he had to get rid of that assuming wing damage. I didn't see it on his car as Extreme on the inside. Can he get the move done? Is those new tires going to give him the grip he needs on exit? They're not. Moen very valiantly defending around the outside. He wasn't going to get that position up easily, and obviously no DRS for him to worry about as he takes a lot of curb on the inside. But Extreme still has that pace in that racing point, it would seem. You can see Seb the Champ just looming in the background. This as well. I do believe he's slowly catching C-Joss for 4th place. Down into turn 1. The racing point. He looked up the inside. He's there. Is he going to be able to hold the position? It looks like he's definitely got it at the moment. A little bit slightly on exit, but nothing he can't handle. And he finally makes the move. He's now up into 6th place in the racing point. And his tyres right now, probably the most optimal in terms of both age and position on track. Little Bear, he's not looking too bad either. Your
race leader Kai Bacchini into the pit lane now. He's onto some fresh intermediate compound tires, and Liam has now stayed out. And those intermediate compound tires seem to be the pick, and it looks like A2K taking a bit of end plate off on that final turn, and he's just taken a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane. He's going to be going on to some fresh intermediate compound tires, and he's going to have to get a wing changed. So that's going to cost him a good chunk of time here, and he was running in 3rd. Is he going to stay in 3rd? C-Joss into the pit lane, Skybits into the pit lane, and we saw Extreme in 6th. He's way behind, so he's not going to take A2K, and A2K, he's going to lose time on Kai Bacchini as a result of that issue going into the pit lane. But he may just hold on to P3 right now. These guys in the front off to great drives. Of course, Liam still has to come in. But these front 5, all now, things are getting a little bit more intense between these guys. Skybits has come out within a second of C-Joss, and he's very close, it would seem. And I think the back marker of Jack S there may be giving him some kind of slipstream. Not entirely sure, but it's C-Joss now coming up on Wisp, the other back marker. And these blue flags up around the circuit, ensuring that these slower racers, these lapped racers, let these fast movers through.
Yeah, and I'm wondering whether Kai lost a little bit of time to Squid, who is in the pit lane. I don't know whether he was misheld. He's definitely faster on these fresh tyres. He's the fastest sector 2 and 3. Obviously the first sector slowed by the pit lane, but Liam, he is staying out. He's losing a lot of time to the Mercedes behind, unless this track dries out in the next 3 or so laps. Liam is in big trouble right now, but as it stands, if he can keep those tyres working for him and the track does dry up, which it is doing, the track is drying. Moen as well, he's gone for the medium compound tires. It'll be interesting to see how he can handle this. He's sliding a lot. It doesn't look like it's dry enough for this yet, and you can see Liam is about to lap the driver who's currently in 9th place. Yeah, definitely not time for dries yet, I don't think. And Liam's going to gamble and try and one-stop maybe, because he's losing a hell of a lot of time to Kai Bacchini. He's either going to come in now, or he has to go for dries when the track permits it, surely.
Well, things have spaced themselves out massively here, and there's such a variety of stops. Of course, Liam yet to come in. We see the one stop from 2nd down through into 9th, and then we have Wisp, Robbo, and Squid all stopping twice, and Jack S doing a little bit more chatting than driving today. He's currently in 13th and has been lapped quite a bit here, I believe twice now. as we look for it. Yes, he has been lapped twice. So very unfortunate to see the Renault. He has had a very unique start to his season.
Yeah, Liam really needs this track to dry up. There's still spray coming off the tires though, so the intermediates are faster right now, and there is a point where you can see just how much time Cabachini is gaining per lap. He's currently 2.5 tenths up on his personal best, and obviously he is currently the holder of fastest lap right now. He's catching Liam so quickly on these fresh intermediate tires.
Liam's holding out for some dries. You can almost guarantee it, having gone now 22 laps, about to be 23 on these tires, and you can tell he's feeling them. And the question is it time for dries yet? And will we even see it become time for dries? And now Jack S speeding in the pit lane as he comes in for the 4th time in this race onto some soft compound tires. He thinks it's ready for some dries, but he's coming off of mediums, of course. So who knows what he's doing.
I think maybe he regrets his decision on the mediums. Is he going to come up? He's coming back out on... Wait, oh, it's Jackass. He's coming out on softs, which is a very interesting decision. 12 laps on softs is possible, but he's going to be slipping and sliding. But there is a little bit less spray, and Liam, he is holding on to that P1 right now. I think the track, it might be drier in Sector 1 than it is elsewhere, because now that I'm spectating, as we've got a yellow flag in the final sector, I think Robbo's just retired his car in the pit lane, which is causing that.
Well, Cabachini almost within overtaking range of Liam. He's within a 1.5 seconds now on these intermediate tires, these much fresher intermediate compound tires, and Wisp has taken a 3-second time penalty. Not entirely sure what for. But Cabachini now within a second already. He's made up pretty well a second. And there goes Liam into the pit lane now. And what tires is he going to come on? Is he going to go for dries? Is he going to make the gamble? Because it is 10 laps to the end now.
Going for softs.
He is going on to the dries, and he's going to hope those pay out for him. Cabachini back in the lead of this race in the Mercedes, and he's having a superlative drive, showing us how it's done in these wet conditions. He's had a very consistent drive today, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that. We saw him take a puncture in a practice race around Zandvoort earlier this week after some battling, and I think that the win is in his sights, and it would be a great drive for him. Liam on these softs now is going to be taking a huge risk as A2K is on the intermediate compound tires, same life as Cabachini, and we'll see what kind of pace he can pull out on that Red Bull ahead, and it could be, for those watching, a potential P2 for the Ferrari driver. Should these inters last him to the end of the race in comparison to those dry racing tires of the softs.
It doesn't look like he's sliding around too much. There's a little bit of spray, and he's not going particularly fast through this twisty section of the track. That's a yellow car. That's a safety car. What has caused that?
Oh, and it is a safety car on lap 25. That's massive, and it looks like the Renault of Moen, maybe, in Sector 1. I'm not entirely sure who that is. Skybits?
I think it might be Skybits in the McLaren. He's DNF'd from the race. On board with Extreme. I'm going to see. I think the car's already disappeared. Has. Oh,
it was the safety car I was seeing. I thought it was one of the Renaults there through turn 1, but it was just Little Bear. And where is Skybits currently parked on this grid right now?
I think the car's already disappeared. It was coming out of turn 4 into turn 5, I do believe.
Well, that's going to spice things up now, isn't it? Anyone that isn't currently lapped, and we'll take a look at who that is going to have a fantastic opportunity to catch up this safety car. And it looks like, well, you see all of these stops. A couple drivers getting on to some mediums. Let's see here. It's position 6 all the way down to first that are not lapped presently in this. Oh, and Liam's just taken a drive-through penalty for speeding under VSC or under the safety car. No.
Huge. As A2K, I believe, has just served a 5-second penalty in the pit lane. And I think he might have also got a wing change. He's on soft tyres as well. Hybertini, though, he's opted to stay out on the intermediates, favouring the track position here.
Well, he does not have a lot of time to make a decision here, because I think we're going to see him come in. He has the gap right now to come in. I think we're going to see him come in. I hope we see him come in. He has 22 seconds to Liam right now, and Liam has to serve a drive-through penalty, which he cannot serve until the end of the safety car. You're not able to serve that mid-safety car. He has to wait for green flags to appear on circuit and come in, so he'll have to slow his pace down at the restart as well. Kai Bacchini staying out on these intermediate compound tires, and that is a major risk for him. That could be a major turn of events, because now he is leading this race on the intermediate compound tire, which by the end of the safety car is going to convert to the worst tire to be on, because I think we're going to have a dry circuit by the end of this. And people to inherit major positions as a result are going to be A2K and CJOS, considering they are on the fastest and most fresh tire behind this race leader right now. And that could be race over for the Mercedes, but of course, a challenge regardless. He's shown great pace here. He could be on for a spectacular finish given how he manages these intermediate compound tires, but he had an opportunity there. He still does. The gap right now between him and A2K still somewhat good considering. There's a lot of back markers throughout the field right now as well.
And there's so little spray coming off these sides. There's a little bit, but barely any. And like you said, A2K is in for a bit of a treat, I think, if once he catches this safety car queue and that restart happens. Kai Bacchini, he's going to struggle on the intermediate compound tires, and Liam's got a drive-through penalty to serve. So A2K right now is in a very, very good position. CJOS as well. He could be on for a podium here.
And one thing to note is throughout the past races we've seen here in Zandvoort, Tier 1, Ferrari driver winning that in Alex Bitto, and then he did it again this afternoon or this evening, wherever you may be, in the club division in the Ferrari. Alex Bitto once again 2 times, and now it is A2K in a very, very convincing position that could net him a race win here. We want to know in the chat who is winning this race right now based on what we're seeing on lap 27, and here's the better question. Is it going to be a three-peat for the Scuderia Ferrari here for MRL Zandvoort action?
Kai Bacchini into the pits then. Getting onto the soft tyres. He's done that very late.
Well, he's done it late.
Very late.
He's done it late. It could pay off for him, though, because now he's going to have 2 lap fresh of soft compound tires, and that may have been the strategy from the Mercedes team this entire time. He had a significant margin between the drivers behind him. Now he's coming out in 4th, and he'll be within striking distance on the freshest tires on this grid, but of course Extreme will have an opportunity to catch, as will Little Bear. And Extreme is on these mediums, and Little Bear is on the same tires as... Well, I think he's 1 lap older, actually, than Kai on his tires right now, but I could be mistaken. But a major shuffle in strategy here on the safety car restart as things are forming behind the car right now. It's Liam leading this race, but he does have a drive-through penalty. And he's going to have to slow down this grid and get a very good start to make up as much time as he can coming into that pit lane during green flags. If Liam comes in, well, yellow flags are still up. This is what will happen. He is going to get a change of tires, and he will more than likely exit that pit stop and have to serve it immediately after. So it could be very, very bad.
So here comes the safety car. It is in this lap. We've got Seb the Champ in 7th. He's miles away from the safety car queue, as is the McLaren of Little Bear. So on this restart, it's going to be very interesting. We've got a lot of back markers in that queue. But like you said, Kai Bacchini, those very fresh softs. They're going to have to take them 8 laps, and that, like you said, might give him the advantage at the edge. Towards the end of this race, we have seen him with incredible pace, but here we are. The restart, we've got A2K, who we think is in a very... Oh, that's Kai Bacchini into the wall out of turn 1. CJOS, I don't know who he had contact with. He had contact with someone, but it is Kai Bacchini into the wall in turn 1. That is ruining his chances. I think he's got wing damage. He is missing a front right end plate. So Liam now, he still leads, but he's got that drive-through penalty. He's extended a 1.4 second gap.
Oh, and Little Bear is on a charge, and it's the back marker of Squid and his AI-controlled car causing issues for the McLaren, and it's the McLaren flying through into 5th position now, and a big cut from him in the McLaren, and I'm not entirely sure what he's doing there, as this is absolute angry driving from him, and he's now up the inside of the Mercedes into 4th position here. And what a start he's had. Kai now losing out to the Racing Point of Extreme in the middle of this field. Wow, what driving there, Little Bear. Stewards caught that, my friend. You're going to have to see them after the race. That was very interesting. Of course, he's into 4th position for the time being. Whether he holds it, an entirely different story.
Yeah, he had that AI car of Squid to deal with. I don't know whether it was the AI's car fault and, you know, it was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but obviously it's Little Bear's job to get past the back marker. Obviously blue flags will be a thing, but it's not really the best place to have dispatched of it, and especially not all that grass he was taking. But meanwhile, up at the front, Liam is tearing away. He's gained about a second pedal as Kaibachini, he's into the pit, obviously, for a new front wing. A horrible restart for him. He's going to be very disappointed, I can imagine. But Liam, he's got to serve this drive-through penalty. And that might mean that we see him fight Kaibachini towards the tail end of this race, who again is on fresh tyres. So we should be able to see him reclaim fastest lap. But other than that, there's not a lot he can do to recover this race. But it's A2K and Seagulls.
He was off to a great drive, leading this race for the majority, and then Liam with a great job getting into lead on those softs, unfortunately taking that penalty, that drive-through for speeding under the safety car. Right now, he's still leading this race. As he comes into the pit lane to serve that drive-through, it is going to be the Ferrari of A2K into net lead now of this race, as Sejoss will be looking to catch up with him in the Alfa Romeo. Of course, his teammate Maxim B, not around on the grid today. He is looking to take over duties for the team, and I think a win would be a great way to finish out a solo drive there for the Alfa Romeo team. But A2K, no slouch in that Ferrari ahead.
Yeah, Sejoss just set the fastest lap of the race as well, so he is not backing down. He realizes that this is now, you know, the race win that he's got on the line. He sets another fastest sector 1. Obviously, the track has only just dried up, so fastest laps are going to be coming in thick and fast, I should think, over the next few laps or so. But Sejoss now, he's going to get DRS on the Ferrari. Not going to be able to do anything on this straight, as Extreme picks up a 3-second time penalty. That could potentially aid Clavicini, who's on very fresh soft tyres compared to Extreme's mediums.
Yeah, and one thing to talk about is Liam there in that 3rd position coming out after the drive-through penalty has opened the door for Little Bear to make up a potential podium place, as he is only 1.5 seconds behind that Red Bull. But it is now A2K still leading this race now into lap 32. Sejoss setting another fastest lap. It's a 1:11.871, and he is flying behind the rear of this Ferrari. Will he be able to take lead of this race and bring it home for the Alfa Romeo team? I imagine the Scuderia not going to be impressed with an Alfa Romeo coming ahead of a prancing horse, of course, but A2K is going to be looking to go on the defensive here as Sejoss coming up the hill. This is a very scary section of circuit. Of course, drivers need to have a lot of faith through that confidence section. Now it's Kaibachini with the fastest lap, a 1:11 flat, and he's looking to undo what Sejoss has been putting on the board.
That's no mean feat, because Sejoss has got the advantage of DRS on the Ferrari ahead of him. Whether Kaibachini can grab some off of some back markers, I think he's probably expended that resource. He's completely alone out there in Sector 1 right now in the Mercedes, but it is all eyes on the front fight. Sejoss still yet to pass the Ferrari of A2K, but can he get him into turn 1? He's got a lot of exit speed, DRS obviously as well, up the inside of the Ferrari. A2K very wide through turn 1, and that's not going to help him at all, and Sejoss takes the position from A2K there, and that's on About 33 or 36, so A2K still with a little bit of time to respond, but it does look like Seajoss has just got the pace. They're both on the same tyres, so no advantage or disadvantage to either driver in that respect, but Seajoss now already half a second clear of the Ferrari.
Well, it's a battle to the end between these two. They're on the same tire life right now, and I think DRS is going to come into the role here. If A2K is able to stay within it, and he is for this turn, will he for the banking is a big question. You see Seajoss with a fantastic exit out of that turn. He's already lunged so far ahead of this Ferrari, and it's Liam in third with a 5-second gap to make up right now. We have 4 laps to the end. Well, 3, excuse me, as Seajoss will cross the line onto 34.
Not have any aid of DRS or anything, but A2K is dropping off the back of Seajoss very quickly, and he's falling towards Liam at a similarly rapid pace as well. So Liam might be able to recover a P2 from this, which is possibly where he was going to finish if the conditions had remained the same. He was obviously behind Carbuccini, who has not had a good restart at all, but he is crushing the gap
and it seems he may no longer be in the session, as we've had it come across from chat now. A2K may have had a steam issue, and we'd hate to see it, as he was on for such a great finish. And the gap that's coming down right now between Liam and A2K, I think he may be back into the session now. Of course, if we have an invite for him, that would be great, as he's going to look to maintain this podium position. Penalties can also play a role for any of these drivers on the grid come the finish of this race. Seajoss having a great race here so far, and there's a driver out. I believe that may be Jack S. struggling still coming out of turn 1 in that Renault. He has had a very poor display here. As Seajoss now crossing through into lap 35. We're now on the penultimate lap of this race. A2K 3.2 seconds behind, and it's going to be Liam within 2 seconds of the Ferrari as well in that hunt for that second place position. 2 laps to go.
Oh, and there's Jack S completely missing his front wing in turn 3 and staying well off the track, which is the best he can do under the circumstances. He's got a 10-second time penalty for it though, but A2K still just ahead of Liam right now. The drive-through penalty may have cost Liam second place.
Yeah, it definitely cost him something. The question is, will it have been the win? P2 or P3. Little Bear seeming to be out of that fight for the podium position after he was within a second and a half earlier. Now he's dropped back to 5.5 seconds back.
Yeah,
what a race.
Yeah, you couldn't have predicted this at all. You had Commentators, who was so dominant through qualifying and then the first half of this race, and then just a series of bad luck just cost him what could have been a very, very strong win here around Zandvoort. But now in 6th place, he's not even going to be able to catch Extreme, but he has been catching Extreme rather quickly, but obviously too few laps as Seajoss comes onto the final lap, and it is Liam within a second of the Ferrari of A2K. Are we going to see a last lap overtake from the Red Bull? And that's Jack S retiring from the pit lane. A bit of an odd one, given there's only 1 lap left of the race. But Liam now almost half a second to A2K. He's going to get DRS here. They're both on very similar battery charges. And when they come then onto the DRS straight, Liam, the rear wing of that Red Bull wide open. He's using a little bit more overtake than the Ferrari. It's all down to the final 2 corners then. He's still half a second behind he's closed it down a little bit.
Okay. A2K, he's under threat, but it's going to be Seajoss coming across the line with the win here in Zandvoort. The Ferrari of A2K coming across second, but it's Liam jumping ahead on penalties into the second slot, and it is going to be a 1-2-3 Alpha Red Bull Ferrari finish here around the Netherlands, with Little Bear crossing 4th fastest around this campaign in the McLaren, with Extreme now in the Racing Point, crossing 5th here, and Kai Bacchini, after a superlative drive throughout the first few stints of this race, crossing in 6th after some unfortunate contact and damage. And you hate to see it, but that was a very good drive from him. Unfortunate to see him in 6th. And the last driver to cross the line here is going to be Seb the Champ in the other Ferrari. And it's going to be a double points finish for them. A 3-7 finish, it would seem. And it's going to be Moen in 8th, Wisp in 9th, and Squid, your top 10. Unfortunately, 6 drivers not able to finish this race. Jack S. very recently retiring that car after a very difficult race. Of course, rain at the start of this one. What a race it's been, as Seb now crossing out of that final banking. What a race, and we're very happy to have finally had the Tier 2 racing action that we had to unfortunately reschedule due to lobby issues yesterday. But it is a big congratulations to the Alfa Romeo team, as Sijos, all by his lonesome today, Maxim unfortunately unable to make the rescheduling, taking the win. Very, very nice, and I do believe that is his first win. And a great drive from Liam as well, the reigning Tier 2 Season 2 champion there in P2. And it's going to be A2K, after some unfortunate technical issues, I believe, putting him back there into 3rd. It was a great drive from him. And just a great race overall. A very long, drawn-out, strategical race, I think I'd have to say, considering that rain at the beginning, Unicorn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't realize that A2K had that penalty, but I'm glad that Liam didn't just sit back and, he probably knew that A2K had that penalty, but he still wanted to get the position on track. Some drivers, they might have just sat back, and rightfully so. He has 3 seconds. He was in that gap. He would have taken the position, but he wanted it on track, and he gave us that almost the last lap overtake and the excitement that comes along with that. But an excellent race. A lot of people taking advantage of, the cars at the start extreme, 15th to 5th. Little Bear, 10th to 4th. Moen, 16th to 8th. Some really impressive drives out there. And Sijos, 6th to 1st. Absolutely incredible for him. He's going to jump ahead of Liam in the championship. Both of them were on even 36 points. Obviously, that's going to switch it up as well now. And both of them going to put themselves ahead of Kai Bacchini as well, who comes home in 6th. But I do believe that Jay is going to hold on to his lead in the standings, despite not being here for Zandvoort. But man, like you said, what a race.
That was a fantastic drive from everybody. Of course, 10 drivers finishing out of the 16 that began. You hate to see it, but the rain playing a factor there. Now, thank you to everybody who tuned in today. We had a lot of great racing action. We saw the club division take to Zandvoort. We saw, of course, Tier 2 today. We saw Tier 1 yesterday. Now, this coming week, we have a ton of racing coming to you. Tuesday is the kickoff of our EU grid, of course. We are starting things for the Spanish Grand Prix, and that will follow along with us on our current season calendar. All I can say for sure is that that race is at 8 p.m. BST, and we are going to have information about that in our Discord, of course, and on our Twitter. Now, if you're looking for this race, it's going to be on YouTube within the next 24 hours, of course, and shortened highlights will be coming out to you on our YouTube as well, so we hope you all join us over there, as we have highlights of all of our races in each of our tiers, as well as circuit guides for each race that we come across. If you're new to the stream, it's going to be a lot of racing action Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and most Saturdays. You're going to see league racing, whether it's 50% races or 100% races. We're going to have it, and I have to say, the action we've seen so far here in Season 3 has not disappointed. Now, we're going to head on over and we're going to raid the founder of the MRL. That is, of course, Mr. Zamis, as I believe he has now gone live to host some lobbies, which is where a lot of our drivers, well, I have to say, have been picked up over the couple of seasons we've run for MRL. And I hope you guys all enjoy the open lobbies that are going to be going on over there. Unicorn, do you have any last words for our viewers this evening?
Well, if I was going to do a 3-word race review, worth the wait.
Worth the wait.
Worth the wait.
It definitely